Okay, it's time for the tier list, everybody. Yay! Honestly, I prefer doing this over watching the Star Wars Holiday Special anyways, so let's do it then. This is every single movie I have covered on my channel since I started covering movies. Every single one. I've got from Dark Star all the way up to Dune, which I finished just recently. So the first movie is Apollo 13. This movie immediately goes up into the S tier. I hold a bit of sentimental value towards this movie because I genuinely am captivated by the story. Because it's not just a science fiction movie. This was a real event that happened. And it's exaggerated in some places for sure. You know, not everything in the movie is 100% accurate. No movie ever is. But for a historical piece, it does get fairly close to the real thing. And I appreciated all the attention to detail and all of the historical references. It's very, very good. Dark Star, on the other hand, it's not the same as Apollo 13 in any regard. It's a low-budget student film made by John Carpenter. Yes, that John Carpenter. But while John Carpenter's name is in the directing credits, Dan O'Bannon wrote this thing, he edited this thing, he did the special effects, he acted in the damn thing. John Carpenter, I mean, he also did the music for it. So, I mean, he did more than just direct, but this was Dan O'Bannon's movie, hands down. I love this movie because it understands isolation and its effect on the human mind and how it affects our personalities and all of that stuff. The movie is very fun, you know, not for everybody, but I'm putting it up in A tier because this is my tier list, and I love this movie. It's a fun little movie, and it's very simple in its execution. It's very low budget, but I do love seeing how they're able to use very little to get away with a lot. Not to mention the whole elevator shaft scene is probably the funniest shit I've ever seen in a live-action movie. Like in any low-budget live-action film ever, that is hands down the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's highly relatable. Destination Moon, I'm putting as an A-tier movie, and I'm going to put it just maybe a little bit, I'm going to put it below Dark Star. And the reason why is because Dark Star holds a lot of charm to me, but Destination Moon does something very special. In that it is a movie from, I think it was like 1930s, 1940s. But it was before we ever landed on the moon. And yet this movie somehow depicts a journey to the moon in a very scientifically accurate way, especially for the time, utilizing some really interesting special effects that honestly are still kind of impressive. They're dated for sure, but for the methods they were using, very impressive and very thoughtful. There's like a scene in Zero Gravity where one of the characters is getting like sick, right? And he needs a pill to help with his stomach so he doesn't like vomit. So they go to hand him this pill, and the pill starts floating around in the cabin in Zero Gravity, and he's trying to catch it with his mouth, but he can't quite get it. But the pill is just this 2D animated object. You know, it was drawn, painted, and then put into the scene. And because pills are just this solid white color, it looked very convincing even today. Again, it's dated, but very impressive for the limitations of the time. You know, because I've seen like sci-fi movies where the ships have strings that you can visibly see. You know, but a lot of those movies didn't care if you saw the strings, which was also kind of part of the charm of old sci-fi movies. But this one, Destination Moon, was special because it didn't want to be that. It wanted to be something that presented itself genuinely. And it did an excellent job, I think. Dune 1984, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this. I'm putting this in the B tier. I don't think this is a terrible movie, but I don't think this is a good execution of a story. Because a lot of what goes on does not make sense unless you've read the book. I have not read the book, but I have friends who have, and they all say this movie makes perfect sense to them. Genuinely, I don't get it. But again, I haven't read the book. That's also like kind of why it's a bit lower on the list. I also judge a movie on its accessibility. And this movie I don't think is very accessible. I think the strengths that the movie does have, you know, are the atmosphere and the vibe. Definitely they got that down. And I will say this much. It is one of the more cohesive productions David Lynch has made. Event Horizon is very easily an S-tier movie for me. I love sci-fi, but I especially love a good scary movie. And this right here is a great combination of both. I don't think it's the scariest movie I've ever seen, but it's definitely a thrilling one. The whole premise of a spaceship that can travel to hell. Like, it's ripped straight out of Doom. And that's awesome. I love just the whole vibe of the ship. I love the gothic aesthetic they went for the exterior. This mix of industrialism and gothic aesthetics. Very, very freaking cool. I liked the idea of the gravity drive. It reminded me of the real-world Alcubierre warp drive concept. Because there is really an idea for like bending space-time to create like... It's like a wave of space-time that the ship is supposed to surf on, and there's this ring that's built around the ship that forms a bubble to protect the occupants. Very interesting stuff. But, you know, the movie kind of touches on the physics of that a little bit. And while the movie definitely isn't realistic to those physics, it's very interesting how it plays with the concept and somehow manages to add a bit of human mythology to it. You know, the concept of hell being this alien dimension. Very fucking creepy. You know, it suddenly makes like this mythological element feel tangible in a way that actually does feel kind of creepy. So, very fun movie. Very gory though, so if you're not into that, maybe don't. The movie is genuinely a good time. If you love horror, if you love just blood everywhere, watch this movie. Good times. And the funny thing is, there was supposed to be even more grotesque and violent images. There was even supposed to be a whole segment in hell, but the movie creators didn't quite get to do that because I guess the studio was a little queasy upon watching the test screening for that one. And they're finding some of the missing footage in some of the wildest places. I think one of them was found in a salt mine somewhere, like one of the scenes was in a salt mine somewhere. What the fuck? How does that happen? But yeah, it easily an S tier. I'm putting it below Apollo 13, just because I think Apollo 13 is definitely the more, you know, compelling of the two movies. Just because, again, it's depicting a real story, and I'm a sucker for that. But it's definitely Event Horizon, definitely S tier. Fantastic Voyage, I am putting below Destination Moon. Actually, oh god, that's actually kind of a hard choice. I love both movies, but they have almost the same kind of energy. So I can't really judge these things based on energy. But as far as narrative goes, Destination Moon is a science fiction film that definitely aims for space travel realism. But Fantastic Voyage wants to go for realism in a different sense. That being this fantastical element of miniaturizing yourself, but then the realism of adjusting like the physics of the submarine to the size and scale that they're at. Where like if you, at human scale, just poked the Proteus, you know, very lightly with your finger, that could like kill the crew with whiplash or crush them even. Right? It's wild, but it's also really cool. I especially love in the movie the scene where they miniaturize the Proteus. And the whole process, they did not need to go this far. But the fact that they did is very well appreciated by me and many sci-fi fans. Because it's not just, and then they get sucked in the needle, and then whoop, and then they're in. There's a whole process to how they have to do it as to not kill the crew. And it's super creative how they come up with these fictional obstacles that also feel genuinely real. There's not another science fiction movie out there that I think can blend fantastical elements with reality in such a way, making like the actual voyage through the human body feel truly perilous, right? Where you can actually recognize the danger, not just the unknown factor, but like the way that they talk about all of the hazards, you know, as if it's a real submarine, because it is. It's effectively a submarine that was made for, I think the movie said it was for researching the spawning habits of deep sea fish, but, you know, obviously it got repurposed for something else, and they haven't even tested this thing. So, like, it's a fun movie. Galaxy Quest very easily is going up in S tier. No questions asked. This is still one of the funniest movies I've ever watched. I can go back to this movie at any point and still laugh my ass off. It genuinely is a good time. If you love Star Trek, you're going to love Galaxy Quest. If you like the Orville, you're going to love Galaxy Quest. Like, this is just a fun sci-fi parody, right? And it's not a parody in the sense that it makes fun of the genre. It takes little jabs here and there, but it's mostly a celebration of fandom culture, which is very cool to see, because a lot of people were expecting it to be insulting to fandom culture, but then when it turned out to be the opposite, it was a very pleasant surprise, and it ended up, like, again, this movie is, like, officially labeled by Star Trek fans as an official Star Trek movie. I genuinely don't know why, because it has nothing to do with Star Trek other than being a parody, but it is, and some people believe that it is the reason why the odd-numbered Star Trek movies coming out recently have been good, and the even-numbered ones have not. You know, there's like a whole superstition of like all the odd-numbered Star Trek movies are cursed, but then recently it switched, and a lot of people think it happened around Galaxy Quest. And if you look at like all the film releases, you do see that correlation. Maybe y'all shouldn't have put that as an official Star Trek movie. You threw off the groove of the franchise! Logan's Run is definitely going... I'm going to put this in B tier. It's not a movie that I would say is my #1 favorite, but I do think it is an absolutely fun ride and a very, very good concept. Just, you know, it's not anything profound, but it has a very simple premise and works within that premise very well. The whole idea is that it's this civilization that lives in a domed city, right? In a post-apocalyptic Earth. And this computer AI is running the city. And in this city, the humans can have everything that they've ever wanted on demand, okay? We're talking food, video games perhaps, sex on demand. Like, you literally, there's like a booth that people can step into or push a button, and it phases people into their apartments for consensual sex. That's the most insane fucking thing I've ever seen in a sci-fi movie. And it's also really freaking, like... It's also just really freaking cool from, like, a storytelling perspective. What kind of fucking society does that? Very interesting stuff. But the main draw of the movie is the, like, overall aesthetic and spectacle. The story is there, but it's not the main selling point. It's compelling enough to keep me engaged and keep me wanting to, like, see how it ends, right? But it's definitely got some pacing problems in some places here and there. Still, overall, I think it's definitely worth giving this movie a chance if you haven't seen it. Very good movie, for the most part. I'm not particularly, like, it's not a movie I watch over and over again, but it's definitely a movie that I think was very well put together and very fun and very unique. Even today. Very unique movie. Moon Pilot is going in C tier. There's no question there. This is not a great film, but I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it had some charm, and I can't say that I recommend it for everybody, but if you like old space movies, this definitely is, like, a fun time. I think, like, the whole premise of an alien coming down to Earth to date an astronaut is You know, something about that makes me laugh. Like, why? Why would an advanced civilization do that? Why? And the whole thing is like, it's not just to date him, right? There's a motive for her coming down there trying to speak with him. But dating just sort of happens, you know, and it's not very organic in how it happens. But it happens, you know. They're the love interests. It's a silly romance comedy, woohoo. But the thing that I really enjoyed about this movie is that I was able to form a whole theory, like a really dark theory around what really happens and the real story, you know. And Charlie is the key to the whole thing. I'm not going to say what the theory is because you have to watch the video to get the theory. So definitely go watch my Moon Pilot video after this if you get a chance. But Charlie is the key to all of this. Remember that. Planet of the Vampires, I'm putting in C tier, but I'm putting it above Moon Pilot. Maybe. There we go. I'm putting it above Moon Pilot. And that's because I think Planet of the Vampires, while Moon Pilot definitely has that cheesy, retro, sci-fi, like early romance movie charm, the Planet of the Vampires has like this feeling of a B-movie Party City kind of situation, right? Like a Halloween Party City B-movie. And it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's also very difficult to recommend to most audiences today. Because, again, I don't know how many people are going to sit all the way through a movie with that kind of pacing. But from a historical perspective, Planet of the Vampires is actually very interesting because a lot of people believe it might have been the movie responsible for the inspiration of the likes of Alien and Prometheus. I'm not so sure on Prometheus because Prometheus came out in 2012 and that Planet of the Vampires came out in the 60s. There's a bit of a divide there, but it definitely seems the two have inspired Alien, which came out in the 70s. And I can definitely see those inspirations like in the movie with like this giant derelict, the giant alien skeletons. And while there's no xenomorph to be found, it's a completely different threat in Planet of the Vampires. I still really thought this was a fun movie. Just to watch, just to relax. You know, nothing that's gonna get me like fully invested in the characters, but has enough like sci-fi, like retro sci-fi charm that I was able to sit through this and just absolutely fall in love with like the goofy leather suits, the little miniature spaceships that they use, and the actually really interesting set design for the planet. The spaceship interior designs were very lacking. The walls are very flat, there's nothing on them, but the planet looks incredible. They actually went all out on the landscapes and the colors, and it looks like a soundstage, but for what they were utilizing, like the technology they were working with at the time, holy shit, impressive. So, I can't generally recommend this to everybody, but I think, you know, if you're here, definitely watch that movie. Definitely give it a shot. It's free on YouTube, so you're not missing, you know, you're not losing any money on the deal. Silent Running is a particularly emotional one for me, and I won't get into it because it's a sad story, and we're not here for that. But I'm putting it up there right next to Apollo 13 because this movie genuinely like hit very close to home at a very key moment in my life, and it holds a special place in my heart for that. You know, it helped me through a grieving process, and I love movies that can do that. The last forests on Earth are dying, so they send them off in spaceships and shoot them off to Saturn, which, yes, I know, it's further away from the sun, and plants need sunlight, but this movie didn't pay that much attention to, like, logic and reasoning. It is just a movie about a man who, like, goes through a lot. He goes through the motions. You know, he kills his entire crew to protect something he really cares about, and he somewhat regrets it, somewhat doesn't. he feels conflicted with his decision, where it's like he knows that he did the right thing, or he thinks he did the right thing, but he's not entirely sure. You know, I for one think, you know, he definitely had like a valid reason for doing what he did. I don't think it's right, but I definitely see where he's coming from with being the last forest on Earth and wanting to protect not just it, but the animals inside of it, because they'll also go extinct. You know, that want to preserve something while everyone else is just happy to discard it like yesterday's trash, I do understand where that comes from. You hold a certain sentimental value to something, and then others just kind of scoff at it and don't care. But you care. You care immensely, and it hurts when you see other people think that you're just weird or strange just because you care about something that they don't. We all have different things that we care about. There are people who, you know, that's why we hold elections. That's why we hold elections, is because everybody has different things that they care about, you know? And I think for the most part, the movie is very, like, it doesn't answer any of what it poses as far as philosophical questions. But it does pose some interesting questions. It does, I think, present a good conversation starter. So, yeah, Silent Running, very interesting movie. I genuinely love Silent Running. And I will forever defend this movie as one of my all-time favorites. The Fifth Element I'm going to put up here. And, oh god, I genuinely don't know. It's difficult to compare, because the three movies that I've got right here that I'm comparing with have nothing to do with each other. But I guess, like, as far as entertainment value, I'm gonna put it comfortably behind Galaxy Quest, I think. Not by much, mind you, but it is gonna be behind Galaxy Quest. I do really enjoy a good sci-fi adventure, you know, a good sci-fi action adventure. And I think The Fifth Element certainly delivers on creating a good sci-fi, like, adventure action movie. It's got its inspiration seated somewhat in a comic book, and somewhat from, I don't know for sure, but I think it's somewhat inspired by that one Heavy Metal cartoon with the taxi driver. If anybody remembers Heavy Metal, just say so in the comments. That's something I should cover at some point. That's a weird one. The Fifth Element is fun because it doesn't present anything overly complicated. It's a very basic, by-the-numbers, good versus evil, light versus dark kind of affair. But with, like, an interesting twist on it where it's like, the hero is not some chosen one. He's a cab driver. And he mostly is saving the world because he's in love with the real prophetic hero of the story, which is Lilu. You know, she's like this important character, and everybody's trying to, like, get a hold of her so that they can obtain, like, ultimate power over the universe, or, you know, there's like this dark and, like, foreboding force out in space that's eating all the satellites, which logistically I don't know how that would even work, but okay. You know, it's a very, very fun adventure movie. You know, lots of interesting destinations, lots of interesting ideas, and also has, like, I think the first depiction of a Twitch streamer in the form of Chris Tucker's character, who I love, by the way. That is a fun character. Oh man, not this one. Okay, I know that I've said a lot of, like, negative things about Star Crystal, but honestly, looking back on it, I think I can be a little bit forgiving of this movie for, you know, being maybe a little bit silly in a few places. So I think it would be safe to put this movie somewhere around, it's going in the D tier. Where else do you think it's going? It's fucking Star Crystal. It's going in the D tier. This movie is trash and you shouldn't watch it. This movie is such garbage. I don't want to tell you why it sucks, I'm just gonna like tell you to go watch my video on why it sucks, because it sucks. It genuinely sucks, and it's so entertaining in how much it sucks. Right? The movie itself is not entertaining. There are several moments of just silence and nothing happening for like 2 minutes straight, but and there's also like stuff that happens that has nothing to do with the story, and there's like they kill off like an entire crew at the beginning of the movie, introduce us to a space station, blow up the space station, then introduce us to a new crew almost halfway through the movie, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And the story is an abomination to God's creation, I swear. And there's a reason I say it exactly that way, and if you've seen the video, you know why I use that joke. But it's terrible. It's genuinely terrible. This is a movie that wanted to rip off Alien while simultaneously ripping off E.T., and you just can't do that. You just can't. It's impossible. And if there is a way to do that, I haven't seen a way to do it yet. So yeah, comfortably putting that thing at the D tier, no questions asked, hands down worst fucking movie I've watched for the channel, period. Don't watch the movie. It's free on YouTube, so I mean, it's not like you'd lose any money, but you'd probably lose a lot of valuable time that you could be doing other things with, like watching my video on the movie, which saves you significantly more time and brain cells. Let me be your filter for this garbage, please. I insist. I worked hard on the video specifically to be that for you. And that is it, it looks like. That is my tier list for all of the movies I have covered since I've started covering movies 2 years ago. And wow, I did not cover as many as I thought. And that's mostly because this year I missed a couple of months, and Dune was a two-parter, so that's probably why. But still, I mean, looking back at all of these and having this little tier list here to just kind of, you know, judge all of them at once, I think this is a great way to end the year. Like, I know I really wanted to do the holiday special, and I still kind of do, but I can also acknowledge my limitations, you know. I'm not an editing god. I can't have this thing done overnight, but you know, I am able to make this, you know, and this doesn't take a lot of effort to put together and make, and you know, I genuinely have a lot of fun with these, and I've heard, you know, tier videos gaining traction before in the past. I don't think they do anymore, but I just needed something fun to end the year on, and I was very, very upset like earlier today, because I was like, I really want to make this holiday special video, but there's just no way in hell I'm going to get it done in time. This was a great way to be able to have my end of the year, you know, without, you know, missing out on like the month. You know, I missed Christmas, which was very unfortunate, but you know, I still got something made, and it is very nice to look back at the journey we've had on this channel and see all of the different movies that I've covered. And I'm very proud, you know, to see, you know, all the movies that I get to introduce people to. Because a lot of the fun I have with this channel is sharing these movies with people who otherwise just would not understand. Like, there are people who don't like science fiction, I know, shocker, but I want to be the one that can convince them that science fiction is actually a lot of fun, and they're missing out. I don't want them to miss out, is what I'm saying. So, do your part as a member of the crew if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, join the crew and subscribe. And absolutely, you know, share your favorites. You know, which of these movies did you like the most? Which of these movies did you hate the most? Which of these movies do you agree with my tier list? And if not, go ahead and explain to me in great and excruciating detail why you disagree with my tier list in the comment section. Please, I need the engagement. I'll work hours on a long form video and get like lucky if I reach 100 views, maybe 200, right? But then I'll cut it up into YouTube shorts, and those easily make 1,000 views each. One of them, I swear to God, nearly made 2,000 views. It might have already breached 2,000. I haven't even checked, but you know, it's wild. Being a YouTuber is a wild experience, and you learn a lot of very fascinating and confusing information. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, I guess that's it. I got nothing else going on, and I don't really have like an outro planned. So I'm going to let me in post handle putting something appropriate in the post credits, you know, for this, I suppose, or not post credits, whatever, the end title card. Jesus fucking Christ, my brain is shot. I don't even want to think about it. I'm gonna let post me think about it, you know, me in post. And while we're at it, hey, me in post, you're doing great, by the way. Just thought you might need to hear that, cause this year's been shit. But next year we're gonna do better. We're gonna have a better year. We're gonna try to, anyways. You know, you always try to. And you viewers, you also try to have a better year. There's no guarantee that it will be a better year. I, as your captain, cannot offer you such a guarantee. But I do know that if you have managed to survive the recent years, you'll probably be good for the next one. So I believe in you. I believe we'll be seeing each other very soon. But that will be for next year, right? And I got something planned for the next 3 months next year. Something very special. So, yeah. That's that. That's my tier list. I'm done rambling. This is the captain, signing off.